Hello and good afternoon. Welcome to Ask the Expert, a program of the National Resource Center on ADHD, part of CHAD, Children and Adults with ADHD. My name is Karen Sampson Hoffman, and I'd like to welcome you to our special Ask the Expert, the nuts and bolts of ADHD coaching. When is the right choice? When is it the right choice? Today's webinar is part of our ongoing Ask the Expert webinar series. The NRC is funded by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and provides reliable, science-based information about current medical research and ADHD management. During this webinar, we would love to hear from you. You can ask questions or share comments at any time during the presentation. Jodi Sleeper-Triplett will answer questions after the presentation is complete. Also, there is a box labeled Resources where you can download the slides for today's presentation. If we don't get to your question today, we still want to hear from you. We have health information specialists available Monday through Friday between 1 and 5 p.m. Eastern Time. You can reach them at 1-800-233-4050. We are excited to introduce today's expert, Master Certified Coach Jodi Sleeper-Triplett. Jodi is a Master Certified Coach and Board Certified Coach. She is a trainer, mentor, presenter, and keynote speaker. Jodi is the author of Empowering Youth with ADHD and a contributing author to Becoming Self-Determined, Creating Thoughtful Learners in a Standards-Driven, Admission-Frenzied Culture. Her company, JST Coaching and Training, provides coaching training programs to individuals and organizations worldwide. Jodi developed the first coach training programs focused on coaching students with ADHD. She received the 2016 CHAD Hall of Fame Award for her more than 20 years of service. In 2017, she received the Founders Award from the ADHD Coaches Organization. Jodi is one of the foremost authorities in the field of student and ADHD coaching. Her coaching model was used in the Edge Foundation College Coaching Research Study and in the development of the ADHD Benefits of Coaching Scale. Jodi's research interests include the positive impact of coaching on self-determination, resiliency, and executive function skills development in students. Again, we are very pleased to welcome Jodi Sleeper-Triplett. Jodi, if you would like to begin today's Ask the Expert presentation. Jodi, if you would like to begin. One moment. There we are.
Okay,
Jodi, I'd like to welcome you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen, and thanks to the NRC for inviting me back. It's been a while, but I'm always excited to talk about coaching. So to start us off, I want to go over the objectives for today. By the end of the webinar, my hope is that you will understand the difference between ADHD coaching, life coaching, executive functioning or EF coaching, and academic coaching so that you can make the best choice, whether that's for yourself or for your children. And to figure out how to assess coaching readiness in children and teens. That's a big question that we get, so I want to talk about different things that you can do to make that work. And lastly, to recognize the benefits of hiring a well-trained, credentialed coach for maximum success. So let's get started. All right. So what is ADHD coaching? Like, what is this thing that I've been doing for over 20 years and that some people know about and others are really confused? By definition, ADHD coaching is a collaborative, supportive, goal-oriented process in which the coach and the client, and that client could be an adult, a child, teenager, young adult, and they work together to identify the client's goals and then develop the self-awareness systems and strategies, the skills basically, necessary for the client to achieve those goals in full potential. So what that really means is that in this process called coaching, and it's a process, so we're working on how to figure out with the person that we're coaching, what is it that they want to do? What is it they want to learn, change, improve? Maybe it's something they want to stop doing. So we identify the goals and very clearly break those down into small pieces so that they're manageable. As we know, especially for kids with ADHD and executive functioning problems, they get stuck a lot. And I always tell my students, it's a clinical term to say, hey, I'm stuck. And as in Tom Brown's book, Smart But Stuck, being able to move forward when a goal is large or there are pieces of it that people don't quite understand can be really overwhelming. So it's important to make sure that in coaching that we're looking at the bigger goal, but also those small pieces. So for example, we might start out with a goal is to graduate from high school. Well, that's a great goal. That's a big goal. In my terms, it might be an umbrella goal over top of the smaller ones. So if you want to graduate and you're at the end of your junior year, the question is, what do you need to do between now and the next year in order to graduate? What are the small goals you have? That might be taking courses over the summer, learning how to read more effectively or efficiently, learning how to manage your time and plan your activities out. So whatever that is, those small chunks that we want to work on in order to help that individual move forward. This is all about what we discover together as partners in the process so that that client, that student, has the opportunity to make changes independent of others over time. Now, I say over time because as we're working towards helping that person achieve their goals and reaching their full potential, there are going to be a lot of questions. What is it that I need to do? How do I do it? Who helps me? So a great example is that if a student were to come to me for coaching and said, I don't understand how to do my math problems. Well, I don't help that student do the problems. We talk about, well, who's the best person to work with? That might be mom or dad, a sibling, the teacher. It could be, hey, a tutor would be a great idea. So we're looking at all the different solutions, possibilities, so that the student has an ability to choose what they want to do and how the process will move forward. So we're really facilitating the change through the coaching. So the big question that comes to me a lot is what is the difference between what we do in ADHD coaching as compared to life coaching? Now, I will say that for well-trained coaches, we are really clear about the fact that ADHD coaching embraces the ideals and the core coaching competencies. We are trained on specific competencies and certified on those competencies, and they're combined. So we have life coaching competencies and ADHD specific competencies. So someone who is trained in life coaching won't necessarily have the skills to work with someone who has ADHD and executive functioning, especially if that person needs a really structured accountability plan. So that's why ADHD coaching is different. Training is important. And we hold our clients more accountable and have a tighter plan with more frequent contact than in general life coaching. An example of that is when you finish up a coaching session, at the end of the session, often it's have a great week, we'll see you next time. With ADHD coaching, whether it's for children, teens, or adults, the question is, how will I know that you're going to get this done? When are you willing to check in with me? Or we arranged at the beginning of our coaching relationship that we'd have text messaging between us on a daily basis. What do I do as your coach if I don't hear from you tomorrow? You say you're going to finish your paper, study for your exam, clean your room, maybe make an appointment to see your doctor, or talk with your parents about something specific that's coming up that you need their permission for, or you need to talk to them about. How do I know that you're going to do it, and how will that help you be more accountable to yourself? When we as human beings have someone else to be accountable to, it makes it more real. It's okay, I don't want to let that person down, but I also want to be sure that I'm doing what I said I was going to do. So it seems to really build the possibilities and the probability of being accountable and getting things done. So that's what's different. When I've hired life coaches myself over time, it's like, okay, we have another session in 2 weeks. The only reason to email me or contact me is if you need to reschedule. And that's it. That's all I get for my dollar, or whatever hundreds of dollars I'm spending. It's very different. So be aware of that and ask for that in your coaching. So as ADHD coaches, we're trained, specifically trained on the neurobiology of the brain and how ADHD, executive functioning issues, and comorbidities impact individuals and families. It makes a difference. Understanding what is getting in the way, how to shift things, what other issues are coming up to be able to notice them in coaching. We're not diagnosing and treating, but being able to notice it, to have a basic conversation and understand the terminology and how the brain is wired and what's happening if a person is on medication, off medication, dealing with anxiety or depression or OCD. So we need to know that, and that's, again, part of the important training. And it really is, ADHD coaching is a specialty niche with a larger life coaching profession. So we are under the umbrella of life coaching, executive coaching, meaning business executive coaching, and ADHD coaching is a piece of that. So let's take a look at executive functioning coaching. What is that specifically? Now, just to let you know, I'm going to go through some different types of coaching, but interestingly, some of the differences are simply what a person calls themselves. Because we're not licensed, we are credentialed, most coaches are, but because we're not licensed, it's easy enough to say, I'm an executive functioning coach, I'm an ADHD coach, I'm an academic coach, I'm a skills coach. So you want to find out, what does that mean? What does the person do? If you're hiring them, what do you get for the time that you or your child are spending with them? So for executive functioning coaching, most individuals with ADHD experience weakness in executive functioning skills. So we know from research and anecdotally from clients that coaching is effective in supporting the improvement in executive functioning skills. We're looking at all the different executive functions, finding the strengths in certain areas and figuring out, well, how do you use those strengths in order to support yourself in the areas where you might not be as strong. And so the title of coach has shifted dramatically. I remember when ADHD was the only terminology used. And as research continued and people started looking at the connection with executive functioning and realizing that we're really coaching around executive functions, not the ADHD, because it's not about changing skills and building skills around coping. It's about using executive functions and executive functioning skill building in order to help an individual move forward. So there's really no difference between ADHD coaching and executive function coaching. And the piece that's important to remember is that we all have strengths in our executive functions. And we all have strengths and intelligence and capabilities. So it's really a question of working with a coach to identify what are the areas that you want to improve upon. Maybe you have difficulty with activation, initiation, getting started on a project. So we work on that, knowing that once you get started, you run with it. You're really, really good at it and do not need to be coached around how to complete. But getting started is a big issue. So we coach around how do you get started? What are the different ways that we can kind of light that fire to begin the process? How do we chunk down, as we say, or come up with baby steps in order for the person that we're coaching to be able to say, okay, I can do this small chunk. That'll only take me 15 minutes, and I feel okay about that. So it's really bringing all of that to a place where we know exactly what's happening. If time management and planning are difficult in terms of executive function skills, then we want to look at what is it that will help you to learn time management skills. What are some of the exercises we might do? Planners that you use, looking at electronic versus paper. It's great to have an iPhone or an Android and have calendars on it, but if you spend all your time on Facebook, Snapchat, and texting your friends and you forget to look at your calendar, then maybe having it on your phone isn't going to be the best for you. The alternative, of course, is we talk about, well, what would it be like to set alarms on your phone? How would that help you to remember to stop doing what you're doing that isn't moving you forward versus being able to manage things in a way that might work for you while you're getting interrupted. You know, there's always the comments that, oh, I can do everything at once, I can multitask. That's really not the case. So we want to be sure with executive function coaching and ADHD coaching that we're looking at the strategies that can help people to move forward. So then there's academic coaching. So with academic coaching, it is focused specifically on supporting students in areas related to academics, just like it says, such as time management, organization, and planning, making sure things get done. Not all academic coaches are trained in ADHD, executive functioning issues, or the neurobiology of the brain. Please be aware of that. Academic coaching can be really helpful for students who solely want to focus on their academics. At the same time, I guess I would call it a warning, is that within academic coaching, there are pieces where someone is specifically working on academic or organizational coaching. Let's make sure that you have your assignments written down, you have everything in your backpack or your book bag, that you know what time you need to be doing things, and focus it specifically on academics. Well, if you kind of roll back the camera and take a bigger look at the bigger picture, here we have students who are getting academic coaching, and maybe those students don't have a good diet. They're not eating well. They're not sleeping. This happens a lot with college kids and teenagers, that they are not taking care of themselves. So their health and wellness and self-care is failing while the coach is focusing on the academics because no fault of their own, but they don't happen to be trained in the area that is needed in order to support that student in all areas of life. That's where ADHD and executive functioning coaching take into consideration the issues that will come up and get in the way. So in my experience and in my opinion is that if we can help to build healthy, happy, well-rounded human beings, and put the academic coaching inside as part of the ADHD and executive function coaching, that's what gives you and your child a really good complement of what they need. So that when academics are failing, your student is struggling, the question isn't going to be always, do you need a tutor? It might be, how much did you sleep last night? If they take medication, when was the last time you took your meds? Or when was the last time you saw your doctor? What did you eat for lunch today? Did you even have lunch? Or usually it's, did you even have breakfast? So looking at those pieces is a really important step to making sure that everything falls into place. So here's one that comes up a lot. Over the years, I've received phone calls, and I still do, from parents who call and say, I'd like to hire you as a tutor coach for my child. They don't understand the separation, the difference. So we have a conversation about, well, are you looking for tutoring and coaching? It's like, well, no, I want all of it. So basically what they're asking for is an academic or an educational coach who will do tutoring and help their child to get organized with their backpack, with their stuff for school. Once again, it's all focused on academics, and that person most likely is not trained on ADHD and executive functioning. So it's recommended to separate the coaching and the tutoring. So with the coaching, we focus on having the student identify and set goals, and we work on the process to help them meet those goals. When we're in tutoring, tutoring focuses on the content versus the process. The content of the subject matter, and they work through the homework, they work through the problems and the issues with the students side by side. In coaching, we are looking at how is it that you're going to sit down and do this work on your own? Or when will you see your tutor, and how will I know? How will you be accountable for showing up for that tutoring session? Now, tutors are very valuable. Sometimes students come and they don't know if they need a tutor or not. So by asking coaching questions and digging in a little bit to find out, well, what's actually happening to you when you sit down to do your work, or when you have a test in front of you, have to write a paper. Finding out what's going on. Is it the process? Is it lack of focus or lack of understanding? Two very different issues. One needs coaching, the other needs tutoring. There are some tutors who will work on the process as far as laying out a plan, and I think that's great. It's just a question of how much more might the student need, and that's where coaching would come in handy and be really valuable. So ADHD coaches, what do? We help individuals perform more effectively at work, school, or at home, combination of all three. For many, there are many adults who are back at school. We help you to gain insight and help people gain insight into their own ADHD and the related problems, to really understand how they work, how they operate as a human being, and that it isn't about good or bad or less than or more than. It's just different. Everyone is different. How do we look at how you are, what you need, and make that better for you? Working on specifically keeping track of things, staying organized, knowing where your stuff is, being more independent. That's a huge skill that we have to build in our teenagers, because the reports from colleges is that typically only 25% of students, all students who show up for college, can really work and think independently from their parents. And that's frightening, because we want to be sure that those students learn how to self-advocate and become more self-determined, more self-sufficient in all ways in their life. So that's where it's important to start that early, and coaching helps. We work on organization and prioritization, managing emotions. Therapy might be necessary. In many cases, dealing with emotional issues and even the controlling impulses is a therapeutic direction, or a therapeutic intervention, I should say. At the same time, coaches can help the students identify, well, what exactly happened in that situation when you got angry, or you hit someone, or you yelled at somebody, started crying, impulse control, coming up with strategies. Sometimes that works really well. Other times it's, hey, maybe there's someone who could work with you on a therapeutic side. And coaches are very good at referring out to therapists, because we know, and every coach that I've ever trained is told, when you're not sure, refer out. We want to be sure that everyone is taken care of properly. We want to help develop appropriate social skills. We do role playing, conversations about different aspects of social life and how to interact more appropriately or more effectively with others, and how to maintain relationships within the family, with parents, siblings, and then larger context in terms of friends and personal romantic relationships as they get older. So the coaching focus, we look at strengths and we look at challenges. So when we talk about leading with strengths, I'm curious, something I want to share is, if you're not familiar with the VIA, the VIA Strengths Inventory, you might want to Google it. There's a free inventory. There's one for students and one for adults. And the nice thing about the VIA is that you have an opportunity to go in and take a free inventory and take a look at, well, gee, we all have strengths. Everyone has 24 strengths. It's just a question of which ones are the predominant ones for you. Like, what do you lead with? What do you tend to lean on? And what areas might you want to strengthen? So we can work on strengths and also help young people who are thinking that they're not good enough, that they don't have anything good about themselves, the stuff that just breaks our hearts every single day, that if we lead with strengths and say, you're really strong in these areas, how about we use that to work on your challenges and identify what's not working yet. And please hear that word, yet, Y-E-T. We want to be sure through coaching and beyond that students understand that they might not know how to do it yet, but that's what we're here for, to help them come up with strategies and skills in order to move forward. And it's just a temporary gap between now and when they'll get it and understand it. We also look at goals, the options. So you might have a goal. An example that I use a lot is, you have a goal to be on the football team. Great. So how long have you been playing football? Oh, I haven't. I've never played before, but it looks pretty cool. I watch it on TV. Okay, so let's look at some options for getting on the team. How might you get started and actually look at what small steps you can take to get to that point? So I want to be sure that we're in a situation where the student has realistic, attainable goals and the options to do something different as needed. And it's important, because to have those options and opportunities to reach a goal, so it might be going to a football camp or talking to someone in the neighborhood who plays football and practicing a while, finding out what does it take to get on the team. That could be a goal in and of itself, get that information. So it's an opportunity to work towards something that's important, but finding out all those little pieces first. And that's typically what doesn't happen and makes things a little bit of a struggle. So the next one is to consider limiting beliefs. Now, a limiting belief is something that keeps us from doing what we really want to do. So it might be, I'm really not good enough at that skill. So, maybe I just won't do it. And that holds back the students. It holds back all of us. I'm the same as everyone else, that there are times when I'll say, yeah, I don't know whether or not I could actually take on that challenge. And then someone will challenge me, usually a coach, and says, so what are the limiting beliefs around that? What's getting you to this place where you think that you can't ever do it? Maybe you can't yet, but how do we change those limiting beliefs into looking at possibilities and probabilities of making some changes? The next one, creating an action plan for change. Actually, it goes together with implementing a system for accountability. Those two pieces are really important in ADHD and executive functioning coaching. We look at what is it? What are the steps you need to take in order to move forward? And how will you be accountable for doing those? How do we make sure together that you can actually get there? So that's a key piece. You can create a plan, you can set goals and create a plan. But if you don't have a system for accountability, the chances of following through for many young people and adults with ADHD, it creates a problem. So we want to work on all those pieces together. So in order to assess coaching readiness, I want to share a model with you. And this also has to do, has to do with when kids are ready. I want to go through children and then teens and young adults. Okay. We have a hand raised, and I'm going to take that question after I finish, which will be fairly soon. So when we talk about readiness for coaching, the reason that it's important to assess readiness is that oftentimes parents will want coaching for their child. They've heard good things about it. They are feeling, understandably, overwhelmed, maybe a bit of burnout, not sure what step to take, and they want something that's different. The important piece, though, is that sometimes children aren't ready for that independent relationship, that connection with a coach. So the value sometimes the value is not great because children are not interacting. There are times when I will be able to coach an 8-year-old independently, and I might have a 12-year-old, even a 13-year-old who's like, no, I don't want to talk to you. Sometimes that has to do with anxiety and other issues that are getting in the way. And we can also switch to parent coaching. That's always an option. But when you want to think about and consider, when are children actually ready? So first thing is a child needs to be able to cognitively understand the basic coaching process. That means, I'll share with you what I would say. Be like, hi Joe, it's really nice to meet you. Your mom tells me that you're having trouble keeping all your stuff together and getting organized for school, and you do your homework and then you lose it. And it sounds like that's really frustrating. What I do is I help kids like you to figure out how to make that work better and to come up with ideas so that you can turn your work in. You worked really hard on it and you want to get credit for it, and also come up with ways to stay more organized. Does that sound like something you might want to work on? That's it right there. Yes, no, not even really clear what I'm going to do. Sometimes it's, well, is my mom going to be here? Or at some point, especially as kids get a little bit older, the 11 and 12-year-olds, they want to know if it's confidential. And it is up to a point. And there are details that are shared with parents and students. But it's important that that child is comfortable communicating independently with an adult, because part of the coaching
Hello, audience. It seems that we have had a moment of technical difficulties, so I am just getting Jodi back with us. In the meantime, I am making our question and answer box available. I know several of you have already had questions that you would like to ask. If you'd like to go ahead and start putting questions in, as soon as we have Jodi back, we will continue with our webinar. So just one moment, please. I want to thank you during our time of just a slight technical difficulty. I'm getting Jodi back on our line. Again, we have the question box open. If you would like to go ahead and start asking your questions, we will answer them shortly as soon as we're back.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Oh, we do. Thank you so much, and welcome back. If you would like to continue, our audience are already asking questions.
Great. I don't know what happened, but thank you for asking if I was here. And it's like, yeah, I'm here. Where are you? So sorry about that, everyone. Very strange. So in terms of children,
It seems we have been stricken by sunspots once more, and our audio has been disrupted. So just one more moment of your patience while we get Jodi back on the line. It seems that our technical difficulties are continuing. I truly appreciate your patience as we get Jodi back on the line. Again, if you would like to ask your questions, now is a good time to do that. If we have a difficulty and we're not able to answer questions, they will be recorded and we can get back in touch with you to answer your questions. Also, if you have a question today that you're not able to enter in our question and answers into our question box, feel free to email us. We'd be happy to do that, and you can email us at asktheexpert@chadd.org, and we can forward any of your questions to Jodi, or we can answer them if you are looking for local resources. So again, we're just taking one more moment to get Jodi back on the line, and then we'll let you know how things are going. Please go ahead and enter your questions now. Yes, I did just see a question come up. There will be a recording. The recording should be available after the webinar. If it's not, look for it at the beginning of next week. It will be on our webpage. Again, if you are looking for a recording, if you need assistance, or have another question that you don't want to put into the question box, go ahead and send us an email at asktheexpert@chadd.org, and we would be happy to answer your questions from there. Hello, audience. I'd like to thank you for your patience. We are resolving the issue. For those of you who have stayed with us, thank you so very much. We are taking questions, so if you want to go ahead and put your questions in the box, we will. Hello once more. So we are going to continue with our webinar. Jodi is still with us, however, we have a microphone difficulty. So Jodi's going to answer questions. I will voice those questions for her and for you. If you have any questions you would like to share with her, if you would like to be in touch with her, her information is here and she would be happy to hear from you. Again, you can give a call to JST Coaching and Training. Her number is available there, and she is also available on her website, as you can see, at jstcoaching.com. So our first question today comes from Chelsea, and she wonders, do you ever suggest coaching for parents only, or do you ever coach parents only? And Jodi says, yes, coaching for parents is often a great way to start. And you can get more information again at her website, as you can see, JST Coaching, or you can find a coach at coachfederation.org. And we have a question from Marietta. It's a very common one that we hear at the NRC. What is the typical price range for hiring a coach? And Jodi lets us know that the price range is usually $300 to $400 per month, not by the hour, because coaches work with texting between sessions. What is the typical price for hiring a coach? Again, a typical price for hiring a coach, according to Jodi, is about $300 to $400 a month. And our next question is from Karen, and she was wondering, forgive me, I'm stumbling on my words today. How do you know where to look for a quality ADHD coach in the local area? And Jodi mentions that coaches do work virtually, so you don't necessarily need to have a coach local to you. And again, you can find a coach. Coach Federation has a listing, and we also have information on our website at chad.org/nrc to find a coach. And Jodi says to be sure to look for coaches with ADHD-specific coach training, preferably someone who has ICF training and accreditation. It is very important to check on your potential coach's credentials. And our next question is coming from Annette, and she says, how do you know, she feels her son is ready for coaching. What advice do you have to find a coach for a 13-year-old boy? Jodi suggests we have hundreds of coaches on the Find a Coach section of our website. And again, you can see Jodi's website there. We also have a question from Alfred, and he mentions that during the talk, Jodi, you mentioned something about a website to identify strengths. He's wondering if you could provide that information again. I think this is what you were talking about with the VIA. Yes, it is VIA Strengths, and this is a website and a system to help you identify your strengths. So we're going to do 2 more questions and then wrap us up for today. Jodi again would like to point out that the coaches on her website don't work for JST Coaching, and she doesn't get paid to work with them. This is one of the resources she has available for the ADHD community. So we're going to do 2 more questions and then wrap us up for the day. We have a question from Shayna, and she is asking, self-awareness and taking ownership of challenges is hard for her son. Can coaches help, or does he need to make progress on those issues first? And Jodi is preparing her answer for us. She says yes, coaching can definitely help Shayna. And our last question for today, as we are approaching the top of the hour and are coping with a few technical difficulties, our last question of today is, do you have any recommendations on how to help a child become more ready for coaching? And Jodi is just preparing her answer for us. And Jodi replies, the child needs to understand that getting help is a good thing and be able to learn how to share information about difficulties. There's no actual preparation. To our audience, I want to thank you so very much. It is unusual that we have technical difficulties such as we've experienced today. Jodi, we are so pleased to have you as our expert today and to have you available to answer questions. To our audience, I'm going to take us through our wrap-up now. However, the question box is open, and if you have any questions that you would like to ask Jodi, please enter them now. They will be forwarded to her. So again, please enter your questions now. We'd be happy to see that she's able to get them to answer them for you. And we're happy to provide information from the National Resource Center on ADHD about coaching and other avenues of finding a coach to assist you or your family. So, Jodi, I would like to thank you very much. I know that you can hear us, although the microphone has not been in our favor. But I would like to thank you for being with us today. To our audience, I would like to thank you for joining us today. You have choices in information, and we are pleased and humbled that you accept that you come to the National Resource Center on ADHD for information. This is all the time we have for our webinar today. I'd like to thank you, Jodi, for a wonderful presentation, for your sense of humor as we deal with some sunspots, and to our participants for being with us today. We hope you've enjoyed the presentation. And I encourage you to sign up now for our next webinar. We'll be hosting Dr. Eugene Arnold for Nutrition in Support of ADHD Treatment on Tuesday, July 24th at 2 p.m. You can sign up now at help4adhd.org, Ask the Expert. That's help, the number 4, adhd.org/Ask the Expert. And you can also watch previous Ask the Experts, including one I believe offered by Jodi a couple years ago. So this has been a presentation of the National Resource Center on ADHD. We are a program of CHAD. And in just a moment, I'm going to put up our poll at the end of the webinar. Your answers are very helpful and very informative. They help us to shape and plan upcoming webinars. So again, Jodi, thank you very much for your time. To our audience, thank you. And I hope everyone has a pleasant afternoon.